Okay, the fourth type of tissue, we've covered epithelial tissue in a separate video, we've covered connective tissue in a separate video, we've done three types of muscle, and the last is nervous tissue. When we talk about nervous system, there are two different types of cells. One is the neuron, which we're looking at here. The second type are called glial cells or neuroglial cells. When you cover the nervous system in more detail, you get into a lot of detail about the different types of supporting cells, which are called neuroglial or nerve glue cells. But we're really interested in the neuron. The neuron has a cell body known as the soma. It has these branches that lead into the cell body called dendrites. And then it has a long cylindrical extension coming off of it called an axon. At the very end of an axon, we have these end bulbs called the axon terminal. Just like going to the airport, you go to the terminal, which is the end. We have information comes into the dendrites that lead it into the cell body. The cell body takes that information and sends it away to the axon. Here is the axon hillock, the dilated part. Notice that this part of the axon is myelinated. Myelin is like a cholesterol. It's fat that's produced that speeds up the electrical conduction. The neuron is electrically excitable. The neuroglial cells are not electrically excitable. The only electrically excitable cell is the neuron. And when it's insulated with myelin, it speeds up the conduction to get it to the very end where the axon terminals are. At the very end where we have these axon terminals, we have proteins that are stored here called neurotransmitters. They're stored in what is called an end bulb. And when we get into muscles in an upcoming lecture, the nerve or the axon that comes into contact with a muscle, we call it the neuromuscular junction. And having electrical activity and these neurotransmitters sending signals to muscles are a key part in making it contract. So again, you have dendrites. Just think of your hand, right? If you look at your hand, you have your fingers. That would be the dendrite. The palm of your hand would be the cell body. And then your forearm would be the axon that's protected by the myelin. When the body demyelinates, that's a condition called MS or multiple sclerosis. An autoimmune condition where the body breaks down its myelin is called multiple sclerosis or MS. The cell that myelinates in the central neural system is called an oligodendrocyte. The cell that myelinates in the peripheral neural system is called a Schwann cell. Okay, so let's do a tissue review here. So when we look at the three major classes of connective tissue, we have connective tissue proper, supporting connective tissue, and fluid. Under fluid, we said there's blood and lymph. Under supporting is cartilage and bone. Under bone, we said it was compact and spongy. Under compact, we talked about the osteon. Under cartilage, we talked about the three flavors, hyaline, elastic, and fibrocartilage, fibrocartilage being the strongest, hyaline being the most common, found at every movable joint. Under dense, we talked about regular and irregular. With the regular, we talked about tendons and ligaments. We spoke about irregular, found in the skin, and elastic cartilage, certain parts of the body where we need more elasticity. We'll go over that again. Loose was areolar, adipose, and reticular. Another way I've seen it show up on some past quizzes, again, it's just drag and drop. So where would we put blood? That's under fluid connective tissue. Where do we put hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, and fibrocartilage? That's supporting connective tissue along with compact bone. Where do we put areolar, adipose, and reticular? Connective tissue proper. Those were loose. And then you have, these were loose connective tissue. And then you have dense regular, dense irregular, and dense elastic. Here's another way of drag and drop. We have to drag and drop into the 4 different types of tissue. Is it nervous tissue, muscle, epithelium, or connective? So under muscle, remember muscle is only 3 types, smooth, cardiac, and skeletal. So here we just have to drag and drop cardiac and smooth muscle there. Nervous falls under nervous tissue. Simple squamous, simple columnar, stratified squamous, pseudostratified. These are the terms that fall under epithelium, where you have a bunch of cells closely packed together. Simple refers to 1 cell layer thick. Stratified refers to multiple cell layers thick. Squamous is that flat, irregular shaped cell. Columnar looks like a tall building or a column. Pseudostratified is that it's that false illusion where it's stratified, but it's really not. Under connective tissue, areolar, adipose, elastic cartilage, compact bone, hyaline cartilage. That's all different types of connective tissue. Here again, drag and drop. Let's look at fibrocartilage, the strongest cartilage within the body. The intervertebral discs come to mind. The pubic symphysis, that's where the pubic bones of the pelvis come together. It's a vertical disc, if you would. And the menisci, which is the cartilage in between, it's the cartilage of the knee, right, between the femur and the tibia. We have a medial meniscus and a lateral meniscus. So those are fibrocartilage. If we look at elastic cartilage, that is the eustachian tube, or the even the external part of the ear. The external part of the ear, which is the pinna, right? That can bend and twist. That's the funnel part of the ear. Then you have the eustachian tube, which is in the inner part of the ear. And then the back of the throat, the epiglottis, that's that flexible cartilage that closes off the windpipe. So when you eat, that flap known as the epiglottis folds off and closes off your windpipe and directs food into the esophagus. Then we have hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is found at the end of bones. It is found in the nasal septum. It's also considered to be the thyroid cartilage of the larynx, right? That's kind of like the Adam's apple. And then around the trachea, we have these C-shaped rings called tracheal rings. That's called hyaline cartilage. What type of cartilage is composed of a network of branching elastic fibers? That's elastic cartilage. Again, to review, I know we've covered this in a previous lecture. What is the strongest cartilage is fibrocartilage. It is made up of type 1 collagen fibers. They are thick parallel bundles. That's why it's so strong. Whereas hyaline cartilage can degenerate, creating osteoarthritis because it's made up of type 2 collagen fibers. These do not form thick bundles. And when we look at skin, I'm going to pause in a second, but the integumentary system, especially the skin, is one of the first systems that's great to get into because it has all 4 types of tissue. We have epithelium here. Epithelium is in the epidermis, right? You have many layers of stratified squamous epithelium up here. We have different types of connective tissue in the dermis. Okay, we have some arteries here. We have blood vessels here. We have some glands. We have a oil gland and a sweat gland. We have muscle. We have muscle here. Then we have nerve, these lamellated corpuscles. We have nerve. Then we have more connective tissue down here. We got fat. We have adipose in the subcutaneous or the hypodermis. So skin is a great type of system or organ to get into because it is made up of epithelium, connective, muscle, and nerve. Okay, we'll take a break here. And when we come back, we'll get into the skin in a little bit more detail.